Welcome everyone to Tuesday, the 20th of September. This is your Frontier Opening Bell with me, Bosun Amafaya. Let's take a quick rundown of the start of the week trading week. The South African market, the GSE, fell by 0.16% on Monday. The Nairobi stock market up by 53 basis points. We saw gains in a couple of the big names such as NCBA and Umeme shares, but a few others like East African breweries fell on the day. The Egyptian market started negative on Sunday, but came off strong, positive on Monday. On Sunday, started positive on Monday. That's the rest of the market. That's 0.93%, roughly 10%. But if you look at the EGX30, you find that reading is below the 10,000 double-digit level. That shows the weakening that we saw in the Egyptian market over the past couple of weeks when the index fell below that 10,000 psychological level, now printing about 9,854 on Monday with the rest of the African markets. Then you look at the BRVM, the French-speaking West African stock index at 208.67. That's roughly 0.1%. The Nigerian market fell by 0.07. The shares of Seplat fell roughly 4%. The shares of FBN Holdings, the parent company of First Bank, was the most actively traded stock. MTN rolled out its 5G network in Lagos and says it has plans for 6 other cities across Nigeria. That's some of the news this morning around the market. Let's drill down into the economic news across. Let's start from East Africa, where South Sudan says it's planning a harbor in Djibouti to compete with the port in Mombasa. The Central Bank of Kenya has licensed just about 10 out of roughly 300 applicants, digital lending firms that apply to operate in the country. That's a little bit of just a drop in the ocean considering the number of applicants. But then the central bankers are a little bit careful in licensing digital money lenders. Nigeria's anti-corruption, anti-competition and consumer agency, the FCCPC, the central bank, and a few others are chasing digital money lenders who are breaking the law, and a number of them operating without proper regulation or licensing by the authorities. So it's a very interesting time as the regulatory bodies across borders begin to look very deeply into the activities of the online money lending organizations. Kenya's pension bill down about 18 billion shillings for the first 2 months of 2022, while President Ruto is firing on all fours as the new head of the largest economy east of the continent. He's rolling out economic policies, he's giving orders, is hitting the ground running. He's inherited a very tough economic situation from President Uhuru Kenyatta. Oh, by the way, he was the country's former vice president. So surely he should have ideas of what needs to be done. But again, the removal of petrol subsidy has hit at the underbelly of transportation, energy costs, and a few others, and food prices in Kenya. So keep that in mind. Let's check in with the West Africa and Nigeria, where the Debt Management Office yesterday did about 250 billion naira into the September FGN bond auction. That's what we're done with the month and for the third quarter of the year. The adjusted timetable by the debt office for fourth quarter. We'll see what that looks like. Then, of course, we're expecting a whole lot more conversation whether Nigeria's budget for 2023, which will be the final one for President Buhari's administration, will make it through as initially planned for the month of October. We'll follow that for you very closely. Tomorrow, the Central Bank of Nigeria will do its weekly primary market auction. Inflation at the front of everyone's face. Of course, the Central Bank monetary policy decisions on September the 27th. What role will inflation play in that particular decision by the MPC? Is anyone's guess? The analysts are already out on that. The IMF has asked Nigeria to focus on its fiscal headwinds, in particular the declining revenue, suboptimal revenue generation across the levels of the country. That came through the IMF country director, Shubham Chaudhuri, on Monday. And Guinea's budget fiscal deficit down despite the 5% GDP growth. That's good news across the West African corridor, while the IMF says it's going to deploy another team to Accra, Ghana, to continue the conversation with the Ghanaian authorities, President Nana Akufo-Addo's administration, regarding the extended facility or loan that Ghana is looking for. That money is sorely needed by the Ghanaian authorities to stem the decline of the cedi, keep the cedi floating, so ensure FX liquidity, and ensure that things are balanced a little bit as the country goes through a very patched period. Inflation, roughly 34% in the month of August, 33.9%. Food inflation, around 34.4%. Let's put that aside. Go to Southern Africa. President Ramaphosa hurried back home yesterday because of the energy crisis that the country is going through, from level 4 to level 6, now it's around level 5. The country is going through a very difficult times in terms of load shedding. So President Ramaphosa went to meet President Joe Biden at the weekend at the White House, had conversations around Russia-Ukraine crisis and bilateral economic ties. He was scheduled to attend the Queen Elizabeth II funeral on Monday in London, but then he had to hurry back home because of the energy crisis. So ESCOM says it's going to procure additional emergency power from other sources just to keep the economy flowing. Mr. Price Money is a subsidiary, the financial services arm of Mr. Price, which is one of the biggest chain stores in South Africa. It says it's in bed with Roots, which is based in Cape Town, to roll out a new insurance, which is called Life Matters. Life really matters. Let's touch now in Zambia, where the bakers says profits are being eroded because of the war in Ukraine, inputs into making bread from flour to every other input, such as yeast and others, are beginning to oil and all that, costing much higher. So they say bread prices, their profits, those issues eating into their profit. But again, Zambia, the lenders have been asked to cancel about 8.4 billion US dollars. The whole idea is to give President Ichilema's administration a new horizon. The debt that Zambia owed under the previous administration has been very difficult to unpack. But of course, President Chilema has done some good job so far, trying to get everybody around the table. The Chinese, the South Africans will be part of the discussion, as well as the Western creditors. Zambia announced last week that it's going to default on the September interest payment to the bondholders. The bondholders are not happy with that. It has happened before. So what is the horizon is anyone's guess, and that is the story. So let's look into the North African economies for a couple of headlines around the economy, business, and the markets. Lebanese investors are interested in tapping into Egyptian markets, while the chairman of the country's exchange, Said Dokani, the chairman, says lack of liquidity is the biggest problem that the Egyptian exchange EGX has. In the meantime, the Suez Canal, the transit toll for vessels passing through that corridor increased by 15%. That is good business for Egypt, as it positions the Suez Canal as one of the major gateways for vessels going in and out of the Middle East, the Mediterranean, and the rest of the world. Algeria's Sonatrach is struggling to honor its gas deal with Italy. That is not good news, because Italy, Spain, the rest of Europe are struggling to find available and adequate gas to pull them through the coming winter. So Sonatrach would have to make sure that it fulfills its obligations to supply gas to Italy as well as other customers. And finally, Fitch Ratings, one of the world's top 3 agencies, says Morocco's fertilizer prices will rise because demand is an issue. Supply is an issue. Demand is steady, but supply is being constrained because of Russia's military operations in Ukraine. Morocco's OCP is producing more than ever before. And as a fertilizer investors conference, which will be taking place in about 2 months from now in Morocco, keep that in mind as well. Let's see if there'll be further solutions to the issue of fertilizer due to the Ukraine crisis. So all this in your Tuesday's inbox for your trading day. You have been briefed. This is your Frontier Opening Bell this Tuesday. Have a great day, everyone, and I'll see you next time.